All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back. My name is Ben Jacobson. I am the digital marketing strategist here at Page One Power in Boise, Idaho. We're back again with another episode of SEO from home. Today we're doing it a little bit differently. Instead of having just a single guest, we have an awesome panel of our very own content team from our in-house team here at Page One Power. Today they're going to be talking some really cool, they have some great topics that they're going to cover. But it's all going to be centered around the idea of linkability and why linkability matters. If you guys haven't seen any of these previous SEO from home episodes, those are all up on our website now. Essentially, our goal with these is to provide the industry a little bit of information and hopefully some actionable things that they can work on while we're kind of in this work from home environment. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are going to be talking with our panelists today. They're going to be kind of discussing, but we also encourage you guys to have some questions of your own. So if you guys want to participate, definitely pop those questions in the chat below. Also, we're going to be live tweeting this. So if you want to use hashtag SEO from home and also tag at Page One Power, be sure to ask those questions if you want to participate there as well. And then let's see here. Looks like otherwise we should be all good to go. Today we have Jeriann, Cassidy, and Danika from our in-house content team. I'm going to go ahead and let you gals take it away from here, and I'll go ahead and get started with some questions. And for the first question, I'm actually going to send this to Jeriann. We're going to start off with what is linkability and why should you focus on it?
Yeah, so when I think of linkability, I think about it like social media shares, kind of like, is this a shareable, linkable piece of content? And mostly when I'm thinking about linkability, I'm thinking of it in terms of, can we get people to link to this in guest posts? But obviously that's not the only place you're looking for links. Like, you can look for resource links. And when I think of like what really defines linkability, I always go back to what we go back to with SEO in general, is that you are looking for what appeals to people, what people want to read. And people want to read things that are entertaining, that are useful, or that are informative. So one of those items needs to be present in order for something to be linkable.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that in whatever niche that you operate in, you want to be informative to a user, but also the most authoritative you can be on whatever subject that you're covering. And that information can be applied to multiple niches on top of that. You just want to be as useful about what your business or your site is covering as broadly as possible, so it's useful to a number of people in a number of industries.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of covered it pretty well, but like linkability is just generally sharing your knowledge and information in your field as much as possible so that others can base their opinions and their own articles on that link itself. And basically kind of taking journalistic standards and approaches into that, and yeah, just generally gaining information from it.
One thing I wanted to add based on what you guys said was when I think about it, like social media shares, I think about, so you've got two audiences when you're trying to get people, when you're looking at linkability, whether you're pitching site owners or you're hoping people will just generally link to your stuff. You've got the end reader, and you've also got the site owners themselves. And so it's does someone want to be associated with this information? Does someone want to be they want to say, oh, I shared this out because I agree with it and because I think it's useful?
Mm-hmm. Or does anybody want to share that info because they know it's informative and authoritative enough? You don't want to be spreading false information. Everybody wants to know that the information they're spreading is the truth.
course. And I mean, it also seems like it would, I mean, it's their own reputation on the line too that you have to take into consideration too. So that being said, do you feel that there is a type of page that lends itself to being more linkable than perhaps another type of page?
I've got a misbehaving cat. Please hold.
I think blog posts, for sure. For people who are going onto a site, I think blog posts are pretty clear and like informative as to what it is, and it's also great for people to comment on, and they're relatively easier to share with others as well. So that builds SEO on top of that. So
I agree with that. I also think glossary pages and definition pages can be really linkable if they are extensive, like if they are comprehensive and not just basics. It also depends on like what niche you're in and what field you're really, because like if you're trying to define a vague term that everyone has known about for 2 years and like it no longer really needs to be defined for industry experts, then glossary pages might not be all that linkable. But if you're looking for like a basic audience and you're really extensive in your definitions, then that can be a really good way to just explain a subject, get links because you offer like extensive information. I also think images are really relatable, but balancing like the amount of detail you can provide like on an image on a specific page can be really difficult. So, but infographics in general can also be very linkable.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sorry, I was distracted by Kat. You were asking what types of pages are the most linkable. I think this really depends on the niche that you operate in. But just generally speaking, if you're working like smartly in an SEO environment, you just like want to be able to ask questions that people have. Like, so like all of those search terms that we do like on our phone, we're panicking and we feel really dumb. Those are the kinds of questions you should be answering within your niche, like whatever you operate in. Like, I think if you like answer those questions clearly and concisely and just really keep your user in mind, those pages are going to be linkable. And there's like obviously so many things that go into like building an authoritative website and building a blog. Like you need to have those certain pages that are for keywords and your target audience and stuff. But I think sometimes the most linkable stuff is just like general questions that people may have that might not even turn into a conversion for your website, but just like questions that people have. So if you put user first, generally those pages are going to be more linkable than any page you make that is specifically about conversions or like building your brand or whatever.
So what would you say if a client is coming to you and if you're proposing, let's say using that example to where you're saying, okay, well, let's answer some general questions that may not end up in a conversion. How would you relay to a potential client the value that that's still going to serve to your audience and to your company as well?
I think what we do here, like correct me if I'm wrong, I think we generally advise that those pages where you answer general specific questions that might not turn into a conversion, but maybe are more searchable or more like popular in the SERPs, that we link back to the product pages that we ultimately want to rank that will result in conversions, because that juice gets passed along through the funnel, just like everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see Matt's question about linkability for B2B e-commerce sites. And do you think that linkability wise, blog posts that link back to products and service pages can be really useful? I also think tools are a really useful linkable asset. So, but I think there's a lot of saturation in the easiest tools that are that are easiest to make. So calculators can be very linkable, but a lot of the places you're going to get links to them already have like the types of calculators. So it's a balancing game.
Mm-hmm.
And in those blog posts, like I might have said this, but like for e-commerce sites, especially like product pages aren't linkable, like especially naturally, like a random person isn't going to link to a product page on their website without being asked. But in those blog posts, definitely include internal links to the pages that you want to convert.
You're welcome, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say basically the same thing that Jeriann said, where like providing information that's useful to like somebody that is a B2B reader, like wants to know any information about like running a small business or anything like that information is going to be useful. And then you can totally put in all the internal links you want to. And then whatever authority you gain to that page is just going to be passed right along. It's going to be, yeah.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have, what are some of the advantages of newsjacking versus creating evergreen content and vice versa?
I have a lot to say about that. I can start if you want. I think that like if you have the budget and like the resources to do both, I think that's really useful. I do think that like right now we're living in a really weird time. Obviously, like a lot of us are impacted. Everyone is impacted by like coronavirus. And so I think there's a way to make content that is both evergreen and also takes into account the time that we live in. And it's totally healthy to just be like, yeah, this might not be linkable for, you know, the next like 3 years, but it's really linkable right now. And we can focus on this in the short term, but also like put out content that's like, for example, like our company just moved into entirely remote. So we could just talk about tips for remote work in general that sort of mentions coronavirus, but is also like will last, you know, for a long term. So I think there's room to do both. And I think that if your marketing budget is limited, just like tying it into like just remote work basics, that's going to be fine forever. Mentioning coronavirus, also totally fine. So there's a way to do both. And I think both are important.
Yeah, and I think if you can afford to do both, it's always good to find issues that, or like newsworthy issues that will always kind of be relevant. I know that's kind of like hard to say kind of generally, but there's certain things where like there are big systemic issues that, and if they're in your field, then that'll still be relevant, you know? Also, it's like what Danika said, just balancing between the two and finding places to still be general, but that will still be interesting to others.
So I think like newsjacking, like it's easy to show that you're relevant to what's going on. It's easy for people to relate to. It's obviously a short-term boost to your linkability of your content in general, and it quickly becomes outdated. And so you have to keep developing that content in order to keep getting links. Like you have to keep up on the news, keep doing research. Like a lot more goes into like if your linkability strategy and content strategy depends on newsjacking, then you're always going to be trying to keep up. Whereas evergreen content is like more long-term sustainable, and like one piece of content can go a lot further in the amount of links you can get over time. But a lot of topics that are more evergreen also become really oversaturated. So it's harder to be unique in that because a million people have written about that. in your niche. So you have to come up with a spin so that it's not generic, because if it's generic, it's also not going to be like, at least it's not going to maximize its linkability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of have to think of like where your readers are. You know, they're not going to want to read the same article, like news article that they've read, you know, in other places. But you also don't want to link something that they probably already know and don't really care about to read. So
also, site owners, like if you're thinking about like the audience of site owners, you're trying to get links on their websites. Like a lot of people, if they're really close to your niche, they might already have a piece about like, is this part of this marketing strategy? So they're not going to want to link to yours. They're going to want to keep that juice like on their site.
I think too, like if we're just using like coronavirus as an example, sorry to keep, am I just bummer town today? Like what is going on?
I think everybody's thinking about it.
Yeah. So like if you're like a website owner that does like B2B stuff, just like using that as an example, like how, like thinking about like evergreen content versus, you know, like more like newsjacky kinds of topics, I think it's totally appropriate to be like how my industry has been affected by coronavirus. And that way you at least have some specificity to where you're not echoing everything that's being said by, you know, Slate and the New York Times and everything else that is probably more authoritative than your site is. But you can talk about the ways that like your industry is being impacted by this. And that gives you room to do like content link building in a way where you can pitch like specifically to other websites, this is how my industry is being impacted, and there's a natural fit there. So I feel like there's a way to do both, and you want to be both like specific and also generic enough to where it's not like so niche you can't do anything with it.
I do think with the example of like remote work, and like remote work's a really good example, I think, because like in content that we've been consulting on the development of, like a lot of people, like coronavirus has brought up this, oh, like how do we make remote like work for this specific industry? How do we make it work with this like structure we have? And you can kind of allude to that need without saying coronavirus. You can say if your business is moving to remote for whatever reason, because like, and you can talk about the other benefits of it, efficiency and environmental aspects. Like you can take that very timely topic and kind of decontextualize it from coronavirus, because people are going to be sick of reading that word at some point. Yeah. So you don't have to have that part in there. And then all your social media shares of that content can like have coronavirus in there, make it like obviously relevant, but then the actual title tags and the like content that exists on the page is evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent point. And I think that is an excellent idea as far as being able to mix those two by, yeah, I mean, I think the way that you said it was perfect. I mean, you're decontextualizing it to where it's vague enough to serve the purpose, but specific enough to be relevant in the current use case. Mm-hmm. Do you think that when you have a page like this, is there something in there that would make a normally pretty linkable page unlinkable? Is there any sort of like scarlet letter for a page that will mark it as making people not want to link to it?
I think one thing that's usually a red flag for anybody, I mean, even if you don't really know a lot about SEO and you're just looking at an article that starts using very promotional language and links to your own products like excessively, then it becomes, okay, this isn't an article anymore. This is an advertisement. Mm-hmm. And that kind of throws a lot of people off usually. So at least in our position, that's what we kind of try to like not to be too promotional, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that a lot of readers would like for to read articles that they feel are in good faith, at least. So like, again, if you were thinking of like the reader first, and also like doing other like smart things, like, yeah, you should like look at your keywords and all of that, like make sure all that stuff checks out, but like do it for the reader. And if you put the blurb at the bottom that has your internal links in it, that's totally fine. There's nothing sketchy about that. But I think that you have to, I think we're being flooded about the specific topic with information. So just like make sure that what you're doing adds value to the reader experience. And I think that everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, I think a lot of the, like when we're doing outreach to get links, I think a lot of the reasons that rejections happen are like excessive brand mentions, things that come across as ads, things that are only relevant to a specific location. Like if you have, even if you're a location specific business, like linkability isn't just about, it's not about conversion, it's about links. So you want your content to be available to people who aren't just in your area. So location tags, especially in titles, like can definitely affect linkability. And then again, superficial content, just something that doesn't add anything new to the conversation, and something that like everyone is already saying.
That was one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit too, was like sometimes in my experience, the title is just as important as the content itself. So I totally understand people that like want to get those like geo-specific like tags in there. But you're really limiting yourself as far as linkability goes in that aspect. And I think it's totally fine to want to balance that on your blog. Like, I think you just have to look at it sort of like as a funnel. Like you do need those keywords in some places, but if you're expecting content to be linkable, you want it to be as broad and like widely readable, am I saying anything, as possible. You just want to appeal to like a majority of people. Like having like disaster relief Austin in the title is not going to work for a majority of your readership. That's important for your blog, but it's also important for it to not be expected to be like wholly linkable on a large scale.
And one thing about that is like, so those geo tags that can be really useful on certain pages, they belong on your landing pages, on your advertising pages, but they don't belong in linkable content.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find that there are any specific formats or structures that tend to lead themselves to be more or less linkable? Like, is there any certain formats that you see any trends with? We'll go.
I think format wise, like a lot of, like it's kind of best content marketing practices. Like it needs to be a readable page, like headline, like big headers always help. Something that's accessible to readers. Like we've talked a lot about blog posts. That's what we work with the most. And blog posts can be so, like they can vary a lot in how you format them. But like blog posts in general, just like because you can present as much or little information as you want, tend to have a lot of freedom to make them linkable.
So just like Jeriann said, like following best content marketing practices, which is like putting graphics and photos when you can to catch the reader's attention, and avoiding like things like geo-specific things that will throw a reader off, being like, well, this doesn't matter to me because I don't live in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, if you're just thinking about linkability, I think generally speaking, it just, I've said this already, but like it just needs to hit as many general people as possible. Again, it's just like there's different functions of a blog. Linkability is just like a different tier, whereas your like primary marketing pages, like I think you just need to think about things a little bit differently. They all serve a purpose, and linkability is just something to get new readers, new blogs to like link to your site as an authoritative source, and then you can push that juice throughout your website if you do internal linking correctly.
So once we have a piece of linkable content, how do you go about presenting or pitching that out? Jeriann, how would you go about presenting or sharing out that piece of content?
Yeah, so there's a couple strategies. Like I said, we mostly, like what I'm doing currently mostly focuses on guest posting. So we try to just pitch really engaging content that includes that linkable content in it to site owners. And so when we're like, well, when we're looking at a piece of linkable content, we're like, okay, who is this for? And then we go look at other sites for that audience and try to get on it. But there's also like there's also like a lot of people do brand mentions, but I feel like you can also look for articles that talk about the topic you're talking about and either try to get your link in that existing content or trying to say, hey, I'd love to write a piece that goes off of what you wrote. And link back. So, but I think definitely when pitching, I always focus on the actual, like the content and the value of what I'm offering rather than the link itself.
And that makes sense. Danika or Cassidy, do you guys go with a different approach, or do you find that there's maybe a different strategy that works in different industries?
Cass, it's all up to you.
I think, yeah, whatever, like Jeriann pretty hits it on the nail that the best way is through relationships, honestly. That's the best way people are going to see it is through their own art, like stuff that's being shared on their Facebook feed and that sort of thing. And the most way that usually happens is through other blogs and stuff like that other people can find on social media. And yeah.
But in the case of like more resource focused, like either glossary pages or tools, I definitely think just like it's just a lot of manual like site finding and outreach and just finding where the link to your page fits, and then building the relationships and like making those people who run those pages aware of your content.
Thank you. And I did have another question that just came in over here. It looks like, how do you balance linkability and how the content works with the rest of your site? Let's go to Danika.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I don't know that I have an answer because I really do think it depends on the niche that you operate in. Some are going to be harder than others. I do think it's really important to have that foundational stuff on your page, like stuff that's not necessarily linkable, but explains what your business offers, what your site has to offer. Those are really important just for Google, like trying to figure out what you're all about, where you should go in like rankings in the SERPs. But I think that linkable content is sort of a means through which you can build your own authority within your niche, and that will also help to elevate your rankings in the SERPs. So I almost think that, yeah, build that like foundational content first, but don't ignore the fact that like linkable content is extremely important as well. Or even just like do a mix together. Like you need both, I guess is what I would say.
And I would say that some content can do multiple things and
Totally.
some content can't. And so like when you're if you want to create a specific piece of content, like ask, is this linkable? And if it's not, like, does it need to be linkable? Can we make it linkable at the goal? Or is the goal just to build up our general authority for people who are further down our sales funnel?
Mm-hmm.
It's like content for existing customers isn't always going to mix with linkable content, and they don't always work together. But like asking about every piece of content, like, is this linkable? Is this, like, which audience is this for? Can it be expanded to be like to hit more checkpoints, or do we need to accept its limitations?
Mm-hmm. And then just like also like trying to figure out how you can pass on authority from pages that do rank super well but aren't necessarily focused towards your clients, and like just getting that material the juice that it needs to succeed in the SERPs.
Awesome, thank you so much. Let's see here. So we have another question coming in from Matt. He says, doing a great job as creating relevant content. How much longer can I expect for better rankings on Google?
There's no answer for that.
Yeah.
Only up to the Google gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different factors into Google and every search engine's ranking criteria, that there's no mapping out like how long, like if you're getting links to content, how long those links take to convert like traffic or rankings. Like our company has done a ton of research and it varies widely. So there's no like factor that can really be used to say, oh, in 3 months you'll get results. In 2 weeks you'll get results. In 3 years you might get results. So it's an ongoing process for sure. And you definitely should never expect one piece alone to move your site in any one direction.
Yeah, it just mainly takes time and patience and sticking to values of like producing high quality content, honestly.
Yeah. I think where we're coming from, like as a company overall, is like we play the game like long term, and we're hoping to like not only like improve like websites and keywords, we're working towards making like the website healthy as a whole and building a healthy portfolio, expecting that it will pay off in the long term. And I know that like a lot of the clients we work with now work with us for like 6 months onward. So like if you're just starting a link building campaign, just know that like results probably will happen, but you're looking at like a very long period of time, and it may or may not pan out the way that you expect it to. But I think that if you follow like some of the best practices, you're more likely to just like benefit over time.
Well, and that's why, like, when we create our campaigns, we focus a lot on like, okay, these pages we think can have short-term effects because like they already have a little bit of traffic. We get more links to them, we get more people to them. The search engines are going to notice that spike in traffic faster, and like it has more keywords and stuff. Whereas other pages we target for long-term results because we think over time, like it will take longer to build like some noticeable traction to those pages, but we think over the long term it will have a bigger effect. And in any campaign, we try to mix the two so that like there can be some results quickly, but also long-lasting results.
Thank you. Another question come in. Charles asks, understand completely that results take time, but at what point do you decide your efforts are not paying off and you need to adjust your strategy? Great question.
I think that, I mean, honestly, you should always be analyzing your strategies and your campaigns quarterly, 6 months, every year. And like, depending on what you're using, like, there's different levels of this isn't paying off. This isn't paying off. We should keep going, like hit it harder, see if it works better. Or this isn't paying off. We should give up and move on something else. And there's also like a medium between the two, but definitely continual analysis. Like there's no like, oh, I can look at this in like a year and see, like ignore it for a year and then look at it and then decide if it's working.
I think too, there's also so many ways you can evaluate the success of a campaign. Like you can evaluate certain pages, but like it not affecting your overall domain. And I think it's not just link building, which is what the three of us are kind of focused on. There's also so many other things going on with your website that could be the problem, where it maybe isn't just the link building campaign. It could be the back end of your website. It could be maybe like the user experience isn't great. It could be the bounce rate. It could be so many things. So like Jeriann said, I think it's just like constant like evaluating like where you're at in any particular campaign, but it might not be just the marketing thing that is affecting the performance of your website.
Yeah, but I definitely think that if a campaign of any sort really isn't showing any results after 6 months, it's definitely time to closely analyze why it might not be working and what can be done to like change that.
Totally.
Another question came in. Josh is asking, perhaps it would be time to analyze what the winning competitors are doing that you are not, then readjust.
Absolutely, that should always be part of your analysis. And I think like in deciding what's linkable as well, like using what other people in your industry, like what are they linking to? Like, are they getting traffic, or what is their content, and like, are they getting links? Like, definitely be a good start. But again, you want to be relevant, but you don't want to copy people, and you don't want to put out the content they're putting out, because at that point it's linkable for them, but it won't be linkable for you because it's already been done.
Yeah, and also just looking to their site and seeing what they're doing as far as quality. And like Anne said, it could be something back end. It could be like what keywords that they're using in their content, and there's all sorts of factors, but definitely looking for advice with your competitors and for comparison is usually good to look at.
Yeah, and competitor analysis like should be part of any marketing campaign to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I think that's just about going to wrap it out. We're going to kind of give it just a few more moments here. If anyone has any questions, to go ahead and pop those in. But I did want to take a few moments to say thank you all so much for joining in with us. I know this is kind of last minute, and we pieced this together, and all three of you were so willing to just hop in and take it on. So I really do appreciate that. For everyone watching, if you did happen to step out for any few minutes and you want to catch this and watch it in its entirety, we are going to put this up on our website. That should be up later today. If there is any other questions that we didn't get a chance to pop or to answer, definitely you can tweet those at us always.
We just got one.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like a couple, actually.
People, and encourage everyone to type in. So Tanner asks, what link building strategies do you use that are effective? So that one a little broad, but
yeah, that's a big question. I think just for the three of us, we work in the content side of our department, so we operate mainly in content marketing, where we will send in articles and hope that an editor will give us the okay. Yeah, so we just try to find websites that meet metrics that we think will benefit our clients, and we send them an outreach that includes either like a pitch or just, do you allow contributors? Are you accepting contributions right now? And we sort of move forward from there and try to build good faith between us and the editor and maintain a relationship.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Andrew actually popped another question here that I think might dovetail into that really nicely and actually kind of give it a little bit of direction too. He says, it's obviously a difficult time right now with outreach. Do you have any tips for outreach specifically?
I think,
yeah.
So I'll let you continue.
You knew it would happen.
I think it's showing that you are a person on the other side of the email, and that and being generally understanding and and what we're finding a lot is a lot of blog owners and stuff like that and site owners are wanting relevant content to coronavirus, which who knows how long that will last. And for us specifically right now, that's what we're finding. But just generally, it's being an understanding human being and whether they like it or not. So.
Yeah, I would definitely say right now, patience with outreach is definitely very important. When you do follow-ups, which a lot of site owners find annoying anyway, so I definitely am spacing my follow-ups further apart right now because a lot of people are busy with other things. And so, and those follow-ups are acknowledging like, hey, I know this is a very busy time. If you can't get back to me right now, like, let me know if there's a better time to contact you. And I also think that pitching very timely content is also like, it's always important, but right now, just with everyone really wants to be posting stuff that's relevant to people whose lives have been upended. So, and a lot of them want that content really fast. So being able to offer content like that's really timely and super quickly, and then being patient with responses.
I would agree. I think that most of the pitches that I send off day to day at least somewhat mention what we're all going through because it's a collective experience. It's like brand new for everybody. And I think too, pitching is particularly important right now, whereas like, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we didn't have to be as specific. But I think everybody is going through this like big life change right now where like, I was already irritated when I got emails anyway. Like I didn't want to open them before coronavirus, but I certainly don't want to open them now. And so I think if you just give them like the opportunity to say yes, no, or ignore, just based on your idea, that's super important for link building right now. And I think that like we've seen it, like, I think we were all sort of expecting that like responses would drop off, which hasn't necessarily been the case for like a lot of us, like in our department, because we started pitching very specific things. So I think that it might be temporary, but just like being as specific as possible and not wasting people's time who are also like very stressed out right now, is like the best way to go, at least for the next little bit.
I also think that like, because so there's initial outreach and then there's also talking with people about, oh, they liked my idea, they're interested, and then they might drop off for a little while. And especially in those cases, I'm being super just like understanding, like, hey, like I know things are gonna be busy, like let me know what I can do, like let me know if there's anything I can do to make this getting this published easier for you. And like referencing that like they are doing you like they're doing you a favor basically by linking to your content. So make that as easy for them as possible, and you show your gratitude and you show like concern for them as human beings.
So yeah, I think that's excellent advice. And on that, I think that's where we will wrap it up today. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you guys for being so willing to hop in front of camera and be in front of the world. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you again. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week. See you guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye, thanks.